Hello, everybody, and welcome here to the Wine with Jimmy channel. Thank you so much for clicking by. This is all about wine education and all things related to wine, be it gastronomy, geography, geology, biology, chemistry, everything comes under the umbrella of wine. So I am an educator in wine that takes people through the key text and key syllabus of major wine qualifications to really help them prepare for their wine examinations. Yes, you can get qualified in wine, but you can follow along with these videos if you are just an avid, enthusiastic amateur and you really want to learn more about a specific topic. The series here we're looking at is for Argentina. So I'm going to go through a 4-part series here on Argentina, looking at, first of all, in this video, the introduction to Argentina in terms of wine, climate and grape growing, and wine laws. Video 2 will be on the key grape varieties. Then videos 3 and 4 will be on the key regions that we find in Argentina. Those 2 videos, 3 and 4, will only be available to those of you who subscribe to the Wine with Jimmy e-learning platform or portal. There's lots of exclusive video content there, many wonderful videos to help you with your studies, ad-free, and then with lots of added extras, be it things like multiple choice questions, map questions, and of course short written answer and flashcards. Okay, let's start to talk about this first video. If you have a comment or question, please do get in touch, and you can do so by leaving your comment and question at the bottom of this video. Make sure you click like and subscribe. Okay, so a little bit on Argentina's location to begin with. Now, Argentina is in South America, and that is what is highlighted on the map on the left-hand side, the kind of greens and the browns and the beige there, indicating the flatter landscape and the mountains. Now, Argentina is cut off from the influences of the Pacific Ocean, which lies to the west of this picture, so over the Andes and where Chile is found, but it's cut off by that large mass of topography, the mountain range, which is called the Andes, which forms this southern section of the Ring of Fire, which goes around the Pacific. So it is the dividing line between Chile, which sits on the west, and Argentina, which sits on the east. Now, Argentina's wine regions are mostly very heavily defined by the Andes mountain range, so by their altitude. And we often say the wines of Argentina are wines with altitude, of course, playing on the words there. Now, many of the best vineyard areas in Argentina do lie at very high altitude conditions, often above 1,000 meters in altitude, so something above 3,000 feet. Now, within the regions that I will go through later, 2 grape varieties have come to be recognized as producing Argentina's signature wines. One, you can easily guess. That, of course, is Malbec. And the other is a white variety, which is Torrontés, which we'll talk about in the next video. So let's talk a little bit more about its latitude and climate. Now, most of Argentina's vineyards, as previously mentioned, lie close to the Andes mountain range, which is in the western side of Argentina, going into the foothills of the Andes. Now, there are also vineyards that are found in irrigated areas that come down from the Andes, what we would say irrigated oases, which is very important because otherwise much of Argentina is in fact desert-like, which of course is a significant problem for viticulture. But the vineyards are found, as I mentioned, near the Andes mostly and spread out over more than 1,500 kilometers from the province of Salta in the north of the country to the Rio Negro and the Neuquén in Patagonia in the south of the country. Okay, so now I just mentioned that it goes down to the south. Now, with exception of those two areas, Rio Negro and Neuquén to the south, most of the vineyards lie at 600 meters or above. So in your text, it says 600 meters to over 2,000 meters, but there are some that can be up to 3,000 meters. Now, as always, let's just put this to my US contingent. So you've got that, so 600 meters, so that's about 2,000 feet up to sort of 6,500 feet plus. Okay, so very high indeed. Now, those high altitude areas are in the Salta province, specifically in the town of Cafayate, where they can extend to 2,000 to 3,000 meters. And they have to, because this is close to the equator. In fact, in North Argentina, you're looking at about 27 degrees south, which is actually very low latitude. So therefore, you need altitude to compete against that very hot conditions you'll get when you get towards the equator. Now, in the rain shadow of the Andes, rainfall is extremely low, but water can be drawn down from rivers flowing from the mountains or from subterranean aquifers. Flood irrigation was widespread. It's very traditional in the region, but there has been a movement towards drip irrigation, which uses the scarce water supply much more efficiently. So this is common in more heavily financed areas, so more invested areas, but also in modern viticulture. Now, the dry climate means there are a few problems with things like disease pressure. It's very low, so there is reduced risk of things like mildew and rot. And therefore, there's less spraying that needs to happen, so it's easier to obtain organic status for viticulture in Argentina. The picture I'm showing you there is in fact in the Luján de Cuyo, and there are channels there which is for flood irrigation to give you a visual idea of what flood irrigation is all about. Now, we know Argentina is actually a very warm place. The viticultural landscape typically has around 3,000 hours of sunlight per year. Mendoza itself can have somewhere around 200 to 300 millimeters of rain per year, which is exceptionally low. Let me just put that into inches for some of you there. So 200, that's about 8 inches to 300, which is about sort of 12 inches, just shy of it. So very, very low rainfall here, very hot, dry conditions. You have often the leeward side of the Andes Mountains with this hot, dry wind called the zonda that comes down as well. So this heat means that you have to be very innovative in terms of viticulture. So most vineyards were typically planted in what we call the pergola system, kind of an international word for it today that stems from places like Italy, for example. But in fact, in Spanish, it is parral, parral, pergola or parral. You're fine with writing either of those terminologies. Now, the parral or pergola are highly trained vines. You'll see that actually in that picture there. That's the parral at the Gavilan vineyards in San Rafael. Now, this means it lifts the grapes away from the searing heat, which is close to the ground. And with the grapes hanging down below the leaf canopy, there is the provision of shading here, which means that the grapes are safely located in the shade. So this means that you don't get overripeness, sunburn, and you can maintain very good acidities in the grape from this. Now, Parral is still commonly used for the Torrontés grape variety, the white grape variety. But many vineyards growing black varieties today are now moving towards the vertical VSP trellises. The canopies will still need to be arranged so there is shading. Shading is very important in Argentina viticulture. Climatic risks here. So spring frosts are an occasional problem. But summer hail is a regular hazard, particularly in Mendoza. Despite the expense, many producers use netting to protect against their vines. It's not primitive, but it's not the best representation of safety, but it does create some defense against these epic hailstorms that you can get. Now you'll see that's a bit of a dramatic one there. So very large hailstones in Formosa, Argentina in 2017. Wow, you wouldn't want to be under one of those when it is coming at terminal velocity out of the sky. So the traditional method of risk management before netting is actually to strategically locate your vineyard. So to not have one vineyard in one block, actually to have numerous blocks across each of the subzones. So Uco Valley, Luján de Cuyo, Maipo, Central Mendoza, Northern Mendoza, or across regions, in fact, to create more of a insurance policy that you will have some fruit, because hailstorms are very localized in their power and destruction. Just a little page on the wine laws. Now, as part of Argentina's GI system, geographical indication system, the vineyard area is split into 4 broad regions, of which really, you'll see here, North, Central and Buenos Aires area, so what's called the Atlantic area, which is very, very small. And then at the bottom there, P on your map is Patagonia, which is really the only region that is found significantly. We don't say North Argentina or Central Argentina or Atlantic Argentina, but we do say Patagonia on the label. Now, each region is split into a number of provinces, which in turn contain a number of more specific departments. In some cases, departments may include a number of smaller districts, and there may be even smaller geographical indications within each of those. So I'm showing you a map here. Now, you do not need to know the names of these GIs. It's just to give you an example. But you'll see here, Catena Malbec from the appellation of Paraje Altamira, which is found within the Uco Valley, for example. So it's a specific smaller GI. Now, for a wine to be labelled with a GI, 100% of the grapes must have come from within the boundary geographical limits of that specific GI. Okay, that brings me to a conclusion with this first video. Please do join me for the next free video, which is on the key grape varieties that we find in Argentina. Once again, if you do have a comment or a question, perhaps you would like to leave a comment about your favourite Argentina wine. If you have been to the region, your favourite match with Malbec, have you discovered the grape variety Torrontés? Anything, please do get in touch. Maybe you have a question about the syllabus or about what we are learning right here in this video. But until next time, I've been Jimmy Smith, and please do join me for a class, glass or bottle. Ciao for now. Goodbye.